again, the fourth segment of the sixth lecture on distributive justice. In this segment, I'm going to talk about using equality of opportunity as a way of guaranteeing that people get what they deserve, and thinking about that as a theory of distributive justice. Equality of opportunity says that a distribution is just if it assigns positions in society according to morally relevant criteria, such as ability or merit, and not according to morally arbitrary criteria, such as race and gender. People should get the position that they deserve, right? So there can be a notion that they deserve based on ability and on past performance, and not on morally arbitrary criteria. And so we're assigning positions in society according to ability and merit. And this is often used in business decisions. Who gets the promotion? Well, the person who does the better job in some way deserves it. There's some problems with this, based as a sort of just a straight formal equality of opportunity. One is that the people's abilities are often determined by factors that are actually arbitrary from a moral point of view. For example, the genetic lottery. Maybe you are very, very smart just because your parents were very, very smart, and you therefore have this advantage. That's yes, it's an important fact about you, but it's also somewhat arbitrary that you haven't really, in any sense, done anything to deserve that. Even the ability to make an effort may be based on factors that are arbitrary. Maybe it depends on how well you were, your schooling, how things worked out at your school or your family background. I've heard it said that if you want your children to succeed, the biggest indicator is to give them tasks about the house, get children used to working for things that they want, and that this will actually have a huge effect on how their lives turn out, and that on how much effort they make in the jobs and so on that they take on. So that's one problem. There's another problem too, is that we talked about equality of opportunity as being used to determine positions, and that doesn't yet tell us how benefits should be distributed to those positions. How much should you pay each position? Yes, you make the person promote them to be vice president based on ability and effort, but that doesn't tell you yet how much money, what their compensation should be in that position. And the usual answer is actually according to marginal contribution. What is the additional contribution made by the person to the firm? Well, the problem with that is that it's difficult to determine. And it's difficult to determine because we're not talking about individuals producing things by themselves, maybe the way a writer might produce a book. We're talking about people working together, specializing in what they do best, dividing up the labor to producing things, and thereby producing more than they can alone. Again, here's Jack and Jill, right? And working alone, Jack can only produce 9 a day, but working together with Jill, he and she can produce 91. Now, what is the marginal contribution here? Well, we can calculate it. If Jack and Jill produce 90 together, but without Jill, Jack can only produce 9, then Jill's extra contribution is 81. And therefore it seems, this simple theory of marginal contribution in determining compensation, that Jill deserves 81 pins. But the trouble is the same thing's true about Jack. Without Jack, Jill can only produce 9 per day. Jack's marginal contribution, therefore, is 90 minus 9, which is 81. And therefore, Jack also deserves 81. But 81 and 81 is way more pins than they can produce together. So direct measurement of marginal contribution doesn't work. You could maybe say proportional to, and so then, since their marginal contributions are the same, you might say, well, they should get equal shares based on this theory. Well, that might work there, but what about this situation? Here's perhaps a slightly more realistic a little model. It's a little model of a firm that has employees, and here's the number of employees along this line, and here's their marginal contributions and costs along here. So the marginal costs are in gray, and it's a very simple firm. The marginal cost of each additional, as it adds an employee, is $400 a week. Okay, very simple flat line here. But as it adds employees, their marginal contributions to their revenue that they generate starts off high and starts to go down. This is the diminishing marginal returns. There are maybe only so many tools, and the first employee can be fairly efficient. Second employee will have to wait in line sometimes to use tools, et cetera, et cetera. A profit maximizing firm will go on adding employees until it reaches the point where the marginal revenue generated by an additional employee equals the marginal cost of employing, and it will employ 6 but not 7. But now let's think about the employees' marginal contributions in a situation like this. They're all by hypothesis doing the same work. They're all exactly the same training. All that's different is the order in which they're hired. So the first employee, this employee's marginal contribution is the revenue that they generate, which is 900, less the cost, which is 500. 900 minus 400 is 500. The second employee, who does exactly the same work but is hired second, can only produce 800 units of revenue at the same cost, and the marginal contribution of the second employee, because they're hired second, not because they're doing less work or because they're less able, is going to be 400, and so on. It diminishes, right? As each employee is hired, the amount of their contribution gets lower. But this seems arbitrary from a moral point of view. You're basically giving people unequal pay for equal work, for the same work. And the employees are not going to accept this. Employees are not, I mean, there are sometimes, benefits to seniority, but they're not as extreme as this. This will be unacceptable, and it seems arbitrary. So marginal contribution is a tricky thing to base compensation on. Now, another theory of equality is this, and I'm changing gears here. That was equality of opportunity. This is equality of welfare, and it's strict equality of welfare, which and I just want to show you what some of the problems with it. It holds that a distribution of property rights and resources is just if and only if it results in everyone having the same level of welfare. Okay, now it seems treating people as equals. Yeah, everybody deserves the same happiness. The trouble, well, there's lots of troubles. The first one of them is that it's actually difficult to measure and compare welfare. I mean, we talked about systems of doing it, but for preference satisfaction, but they're complicated, and they're subject to fraud. Another problem is that some people's tastes are very different. The problem of expensive tastes. In this case, we had inexpensive tastes in the earlier one. But some people have to have champagne, let's say, instead of beer to get the same welfare as the beer drinker does. And it's more expensive to satisfy the preferences of those who like expensive things. And that seems unfair, because that ends up we give more resources to people just because they like expensive things and don't have a taste for beer. We have to buy them champagne. So this seems a problem. And another big problem is the notion of leveling down. Remember, it says everyone should have the same level of welfare. Well, here's an example of equality of welfare. On the top line, Ron, Sal, and Tom each have 60 units of welfare, 60 UTILs. This is equality of welfare here on the top line. Okay, but it's there's something seems a bit wrong with this. The bottom line, in the bottom line, Tom and Sal get a bit more than Ron, right? But the thing is, everybody is better off, right? And equality of welfare says that the top distribution is better. But this seems wrong because it actually makes everybody worse off. Leveling down is like the fundamental problem that people have usually with equality as egalitarian theories of justice. And the theories that I will look at in the next segment are based on ways of avoiding this leveling down problem. Okay, so here's a question for you. Which of the following best exemplifies formal equality of opportunity? So pause the video, think about this for a second, and I'll be back. Okay, let's have a look here. This is the best policy because it will bring about the same happiness for everyone affected by it. Well, you should be able to identify that as an example of equality of welfare, fairness, and it's not equality of opportunity. Strict equality of welfare. Everyone gets the same happiness. B, this is the best policy because it will bring about the same income to everyone. Okay, this was happiness or welfare. This is same income or resources. This is strict equality of resources, not equality of opportunity. C says, though this policy will not bring the same income to everyone, okay, so it's definitely not B, it's not strict equality of resources, it will bring the most income to those who are least well off. Well, this isn't talking about directly about equality of opportunity. This is talking about something else, which you will see in a moment is John Rawls's difference principle, his theory of justice. So this is not likely to be the answer. But this, the final one, this hiring policy invites applications for the job from both men and women. Trying to give equal opportunities to both men and women would be probably your best pick out of this lot. All right, I'll see you again in a few minutes.